Exhausted, bare, stranded on cliff ledge, what this human baby did was shocking. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help us to remain in touch with amazing people like you. The morning sun cast long shadows across Pine Valley as Maya Chen finished setting up her family's campsite. Her husband Daniel was gathering firewood nearby, while their 10-month-old daughter Lily played in a portable playpen, babbling happily at a colorful toy. The tranquil scene betrayed nothing of the drama that would soon unfold on the jagged cliffs looming above them. Half a mile up the mountain face, a massive brown bear clung desperately to a narrow ledge. His powerful muscles trembled with exhaustion, his thick fur matted with dirt and sweat. The bear had been trapped for nearly 2 days, having slipped during his descent after being chased by territorial wolves. Now, his strength was failing fast. Each time the bear tried to climb upward, loose rocks crumbled beneath his massive paws, sending small avalanches of pebbles tumbling into the abyss below. His desperate growls echoed faintly across the valley, carried by the morning breeze. Maya paused as she unpacked their cooler, her head tilting slightly. "Do you hear that?" she asked Daniel, who was arranging kindling for a fire. Before Daniel could answer, a group of hikers emerged from the trail that wound along the base of the cliff. They were pointing upward, their excited voices carrying across the campsite. "There's a bear up there," one of them called out, waving frantically. "It's stuck on that ledge." Maya shaded her eyes and peered up at the cliff face. Sure enough, she could make out the dark shape of the animal, moving in jerky, desperate motions against the gray stone. "How did it get trapped up there?" she whispered, her heart suddenly aching for the creature. Little Lily, as if sensing the shift in atmosphere, stopped playing with her toy. Her round eyes followed her mother's gaze upward, fixating on the distant silhouette of the struggling bear. She let out a soft, curious coo and pointed one chubby finger toward the cliff. None of the adults noticed the intensity in the baby's stare, or how her usual babbling fell silent as she watched the bear fight for its life on the precarious ledge high above them. The hikers gathered at the base of the cliff, their cameras out, their voices a mix of excitement and concern. "Should we call the rangers?" one woman asked, her binoculars trained on the bear. "What good would that do?" replied a tall man in a red cap. "By the time they get here, that bear will either have climbed out or fallen to its death." Maya felt a chill at his callous words. She glanced back at Lily and froze. Something in her daughter's expression had changed, a focus, an awareness that seemed beyond her months. The baby's eyes never left the distant bear, and her tiny hands gripped the edge of the playpen, as if she were trying to get closer. What could a helpless baby possibly do for an exhausted bear stranded on a cliff ledge? Maya would soon find out, and it would leave her questioning everything she thought she knew about the connection between humans and wild animals. The bear's claws scraped against the rock, sending another shower of dust and pebbles cascading down the cliff face. Its labored breathing grew more ragged with each passing minute. The crowd of onlookers at the base of the cliff had grown to nearly 20 people, their opinions divided on what should be done. "We should leave it alone," insisted a woman in hiking gear. "Wild animals get themselves into these situations all the time. It's nature's way." "That's cruel," argued another hiker, a young man with a wildlife conservation logo on his backpack. "We've encroached on their habitat. The least we can do is help when we can." Maya felt torn as she listened to the debate. She understood both perspectives, but watching the bear's desperate struggle stirred something deep within her. Daniel had joined the crowd, leaving Maya to watch Lily, who remained unusually quiet and focused on the unfolding drama. The bear let out a heart-wrenching groan that echoed across the valley, its massive body trembling visibly even from a distance. Maya saw several hikers flinch at the sound, while others continued to snap photos, their cameras clicking rapidly. "I'm calling the ranger station," Daniel decided, pulling out his phone. His face fell as he stared at the screen. No signal. I'll have to hike back to that clearing we passed about a mile back. Maya nodded, her eyes darting between the bear and her daughter. "Hurry," she urged. "I don't think that bear has much time left." As Daniel jogged away down the trail, Maya turned back to check on Lily and gasped. The playpen was empty. Panic surged through her as she spun around, scanning the campsite frantically. "Lily?" she cried, her heart pounding in her chest. A flash of movement caught her eye. Lily had somehow managed to climb out of her playpen and was crawling with surprising speed toward the base of the cliff where the hikers were gathered. Maya raced after her daughter, scooping her up just as she reached the edge of the crowd. "How did you get out, you little escape artist?" she asked, her voice shaky with relief. Lily squirmed in her mother's arms, her tiny hands reaching toward the cliff, insistent little sounds coming from her throat. The bear above let out another groan, and Lily responded with a sound of her own, not her usual happy babble, but something more purposeful, almost like she was trying to answer the bear's call. The hikers nearest to Maya turned to look at the baby, their expressions shifting from concern to curiosity. "Your baby seems really interested in what's happening," observed an elderly man with a walking stick. "Never seen a little one so focused on something like this." Maya nodded, unsettled by Lily's behavior. She's never acted like this before. Above them, the bear's movements were becoming more erratic. It tried to stretch one massive paw toward a jutting rock that might offer better purchase, but couldn't quite reach it. Its back paws slipped slightly, causing several onlookers to gasp. The bear clung on, but it was clear its strength was fading fast. Lily suddenly let out a loud, piercing cry that silenced the murmuring crowd. It wasn't a cry of distress or hunger, the sounds Maya had learned to distinguish over the past 10 months. This was something different, something purposeful. The cry echoed up the cliff face, clear and strong. And then something extraordinary happened. The bear, which had been moving with increasing desperation, went still. Its large head swiveled, and even from a distance Maya could see its eyes searching the crowd below until they seemed to lock onto Lily. "Did you see that?" whispered one of the hikers. "It's like it heard the baby." "That's ridiculous," scoffed the man in the red cap. "Bears don't respond to human babies." But Maya wasn't listening to them anymore. She was watching the connection forming between her daughter and the wild animal stranded high above them. A connection that defied explanation but was undeniably real. Lily's tiny hand reached upward, opening and closing as if trying to grasp the bear and pull it to safety. She let out another cry, louder than before, and the bear's ears twitched in response. The crowd fell silent, the debate forgotten as they witnessed the strange communication between baby and bear. The atmosphere around the cliff changed, tension giving way to a collective holding of breath, a shared moment of wondering what would happen next. A sudden gust of wind swept through the valley, rustling the pines and sending a chill through the assembled onlookers. The bear swayed precariously on its narrow ledge, loose pebbles cascading down the cliff face. Several people gasped, certain they were about to witness the animal's fatal plunge. But Lily would not be silent. Her cries grew more insistent, a pure and unrelenting sound that cut through the valley's tension like a beacon. Maya held her daughter tightly, torn between the instinct to quiet her and a growing sense that something remarkable was unfolding. The bear's massive head lifted, its dark eyes finding Lily once more. for a heartbeat that seemed to stretch into eternity. The wild animal and the human child locked gazes across the impossible distance that separated them. "Look," whispered the elderly man with the walking stick, pointing with a trembling finger. "The bear is moving differently now." He was right. The bear's movements, which had been frantic and uncoordinated, became more deliberate. It shifted its weight carefully, powerful muscles bunching beneath its dirt-matted fur. With excruciating slowness, it began to edge sideways along the ledge, toward a section of the cliff that offered a slightly more forgiving path upward. Lily squirmed in Maya's arms, reaching out as if to offer guidance to the struggling animal. Her little face was a mask of concentration, her usual baby babble replaced by purposeful sounds that almost seemed to form a pattern. The crowd around them had fallen completely silent, the earlier debate forgotten as they watched the unfolding drama. "She's encouraging it," murmured a woman nearby, her voice filled with wonder. "Your baby is somehow encouraging that bear to find a way out." Maya couldn't speak, her throat tight with emotion as she watched her daughter connect with the wild creature in a way that defied explanation. She thought of all the stories she'd heard about the special bond between children and animals, but this was something else entirely. A connection that transcended domestication, that reached into something primal and pure. The bear paused at the end of the ledge, where the cliff face became slightly less sheer. It stretched one massive paw upward, claws scraping against rock as it tested for a hold. For a terrible moment it seemed the stone would crumble again, sending the exhausted animal plummeting to the ground. Lily let out her loudest cry yet, a sound so full of determination that it seemed impossible it could come from such a tiny being. The bear's head jerked toward her again, and something changed in its posture, a new resolve, a final gathering of strength. With a powerful heave that sent a shower of dust and small rocks raining down, the bear lunged upward, its front paws finding purchase on a narrow shelf of rock. For one breathless moment it hung suspended, back legs scrabbling for grip, the outcome still uncertain. And then, in a surge of muscle and will, the bear pulled itself up and over the edge, disappearing from view onto a wider plateau above. A cheer erupted from the crowd, the tension of the past hour breaking in a wave of relief and jubilation. People hugged each other, some wiping tears from their eyes, others laughing with the pure joy of having witnessed something miraculous. Maya felt tears streaming down her own cheeks as she hugged Lily close. "You did it," she whispered into her daughter's soft hair. "Somehow, you helped that bear find its way to safety." Lily had gone quiet now, her mission seemingly accomplished. She yawned and nestled against her mother's shoulder, as if the intense connection she'd maintained with the bear had drained her small reserves of energy. The sound of running footsteps announced Daniel's return, accompanied by 2 park rangers in uniform. They looked confused by the celebrating crowd. "What happened?" Daniel asked, breathless from his run. "Did the bear fall?" "No," Maya replied, her voice filled with wonder. "It climbed to safety, and our daughter helped it happen." Daniel's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief, as Maya recounted what had transpired in his absence. The rangers listened too, exchanging skeptical glances that softened as other witnesses confirmed the extraordinary connection they'd observed between the baby and the bear. "I've been working these mountains for 20 years, said the older ranger, shaking his head in amazement. "Never seen or heard anything like this before." As if to provide final confirmation of the miracle they'd witnessed, a low, rumbling sound echoed from above. The crowd fell silent, all eyes turning upward. There, standing at the edge of the upper plateau, was the bear. Its massive form was silhouetted against the sky, head lowered as if looking down at the tiny human who had somehow given it the will to survive. The bear remained visible on the plateau for several long moments, its dark silhouette stark against the blue mountain sky. The crowd below watched in reverent silence, cameras forgotten, the usual chatter of excited tourists replaced by a collective sense of having witnessed something profound. Lily had fallen asleep in Maya's arms, her small body limp with exhaustion. Whatever energy had flowed between her and the bear had left her peaceful, her face serene in slumber. Maya stroked her daughter's hair, still trying to process what she had witnessed. "We should get her back to camp," Daniel whispered, his arm protective around his wife's shoulders. His earlier skepticism had faded, replaced by a quiet awe. He had missed the most dramatic moments, but the testimonies of 20 witnesses and the undeniable presence of the bear, now safe, were enough to convince him that something extraordinary had occurred. As they turned to leave, the elderly man with the walking stick approached them. "I've spent 60 years hiking these mountains," he said, his weathered face creased with emotion. "Seen all manner of interactions between humans and wildlife, but never," he paused, swallowing hard, "never have I seen anything like what your daughter did today." Maya nodded, unable to find words adequate to respond. What could she say? That her 10-month-old had somehow formed a connection with a wild bear that transcended the natural barriers between species. That her baby girl had somehow communicated across that divide, giving strength and purpose to a creature on the brink of death. The rangers had moved through the crowd, taking statements and ensuring that everyone maintained a safe distance from the cliff. The older ranger approached Maya and Daniel. "We'll monitor the bear from a distance to make sure it's not injured," he assured them. "But it seems to be moving well now, whatever happened here today." He glanced at the sleeping Lily and shook his head in wonder. "Well, let's just say it's not going in my official report. Some things defy explanation." As they walked back to their campsite, Maya felt a strange mixture of emotions washing over her. Pride in her daughter's inexplicable connection with the bear, fear at what might have been, had the bear fallen or had Lily somehow been in danger, and beneath it all, a sense of having glimpsed something ancient and powerful, a reminder that the boundaries between humans and the natural world were perhaps more permeable than modern life had led them to believe. Back at the campsite, they laid Lily in her playpen, where she continued to sleep peacefully. Daniel busied himself preparing lunch, while Maya sat nearby, watching her daughter with new eyes. "What do you think it means?" she asked softly, not really expecting Daniel to have an answer. He paused in his task, looking thoughtfully at their sleeping child. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I think we just got a glimpse of something most people go their whole lives without seeing." Maya nodded. It's like she knew. Like she understood the bear needed help, and somehow knew she could provide it. "Maybe babies are more connected to the natural world than we are," Daniel suggested. "Before language and socialization create all these barriers, maybe Lily still has access to something we've lost." As they talked quietly, a low rumble sounded from the edge of their campsite. Maya froze, her heart pounding. Slowly, she turned toward the source of the sound. There, partially hidden by the undergrowth at the forest's edge, was the bear. It stood perfectly still, its massive head lowered, eyes fixed on the playpen where Lily slept. It made no move to approach, maintaining a respectful distance that nonetheless allowed it a clear view of the baby. Daniel had seen it too. He moved with careful slowness to stand beside Maya, his hand finding hers and squeezing tightly. "Don't move," he whispered. "Just stay calm." But Maya wasn't afraid. Something in the bear's posture, in the gentle rumble that emerged from its throat, told her this was not a threat. This was a thank you, a recognition, an acknowledgement of the extraordinary connection that had saved its life. For several long heartbeats, the bear remained at the edge of the clearing, its eyes never leaving the sleeping baby. Then, with a final soft huff that seemed to carry meaning beyond human understanding, it turned and disappeared silently into the forest. Maya let out the breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Did that just happen?" she whispered. Daniel nodded, his face a mixture of disbelief and wonder. It came to see her, to see Lily. In her playpen, Lily stirred slightly, a small smile curving her lips even in sleep, as if she sensed the bear's presence and its silent message of gratitude. The evening shadows lengthened across the campsite as Maya and Daniel sat beside their daughter's playpen, their planned hiking trip forgotten. Something more important had happened today, something that would forever change how they viewed their daughter, and perhaps how they understood the complex web of connections between all living things. As the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, Maya made a silent promise to nurture whatever special sensitivity Lily possessed, to help her daughter maintain that pure, unfiltered connection to the natural world that most adults had long since lost. In the distance, the faint sound of a bear's contented growl echoed through the valley, a reminder of the miracle they had witnessed and the mystery of a bond that had bridged the divide between a human baby and a wild creature in its moment of greatest need. Word of the extraordinary event spread quickly through Pine Valley. By nightfall, rangers had established a perimeter around the Chen family's campsite, partly to protect them from the curious onlookers who had begun to arrive, and partly to ensure the bear didn't return too close to the camping area. Maya sat by the fire, watching the flames dance while Daniel spoke quietly with the head ranger. Lily slept peacefully in her tent, seemingly unaffected by the commotion her actions had caused. Occasionally, Maya would glance toward the dark tree line, wondering if the bear was still nearby, watching over them from a distance. "Mrs. Chen?" A woman's voice broke through her thoughts. Maya looked up to see a ranger she hadn't met before, her uniform crisp despite the late hour. "I'm Dr. Elena Vasquez, the wildlife biologist for the Park Service. Could I speak with you for a moment?" Maya nodded, making room on the log beside her. Dr. Vasquez sat down, her expression a mixture of professional curiosity and barely concealed excitement. "I've interviewed several witnesses," she began, her voice low. "Their accounts are consistent and frankly incredible. I've studied human-wildlife interactions for 15 years, and I've never documented anything like what happened today." Maya stared into the fire. "I wouldn't have believed it myself if I hadn't seen it," she admitted. The way Lily connected with that bear, it was like they understood each other on some level beyond words. Dr. Vasquez nodded thoughtfully. "There are documented cases of unusual empathetic connections between young children and animals, but typically with domesticated species, therapy dogs, horses, never with a wild predator." She hesitated. "Has your daughter shown any unusual affinity for animals before?" Maya thought about it. "She's always been fascinated by our neighbor's cat, and she seems to calm down whenever we pass dogs in the park, but nothing that seemed extraordinary. Until today," Dr. Vasquez finished softly. "Until today." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Maya knew their family's life had changed in ways she couldn't yet fully comprehend. Dr. Vasquez pulled out a small notebook. "If you're willing, I'd like to stay in touch. What happened here might help us better understand the innate connections between humans and wildlife. Connections we may have lost as our species became more removed from the natural world." Before Maya could respond, a commotion erupted at the edge of the Rangers' perimeter. Voices rose in alarm, flashlight beams cutting through the darkness. Daniel hurried back to the campfire, his face tense. "What's happening?" Maya asked, rising to her feet. "The bear," he said simply. "It's back." Dr. Vasquez was already moving, her hand on the radio at her belt. "Nobody approach it," she commanded. "Give it space." Maya's heart pounded as she hurried to the tent where Lily slept. She unzipped the flap just enough to peek inside, reassuring herself that her daughter was safe and still sleeping peacefully. As she turned back toward the commotion, a hush fell over the campground. There, at the very edge of the light cast by the various campfires, stood the bear. It was still, its massive form somehow appearing less threatening than it had on the cliff. In its mouth, it held something. A small branch with late-season berries still clinging to the twigs. With deliberate slowness, the bear placed the branch on the ground, then took 2 steps backward, its eyes fixed on the tent where Lily slept. A collective gasp rose from the onlookers as they realized what they were witnessing. A gift, an offering from Predator to the tiny human who had somehow saved its life. "Don't move," Dr. Vasquez whispered, her scientific detachment momentarily forgotten in the face of this unprecedented behavior. "Let it leave on its own terms." The bear remained for another long moment, its eyes reflecting the firelight before it turned and melted back into the darkness of the forest. The branch remained, a tangible reminder of the connection that had formed against all odds and expectations. Maya sank down beside Daniel, her legs suddenly weak. "It brought a gift for Lily," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Dr. Vasquez approached the branch cautiously, examining it without touching it. "Mountain huckleberries," she identified, her voice thick with emotion. "Among the bear's most valued food sources, especially before hibernation." She looked up at Maya and Daniel, her scientific reserve cracking. "I've never seen anything like this, never even heard of anything like this." Later, after the Rangers had documented everything and the excitement had died down, Maya and Daniel sat alone by their dying fire. The gifted branch had been carefully preserved by Dr. Vasquez as evidence of the extraordinary interaction, with a promise that it would be returned to them later. "What do we do now?" Daniel asked softly. "Our daughter apparently has some kind of connection with wild animals that science can't explain. How do we even begin to understand that, let alone nurture it?" Maya leaned against his shoulder, watching the last flames flicker among the embers. "I don't know," she admitted. "But I think we start by remembering what we witnessed today. The pure, unfiltered connection between Lily and that bear revealed something beautiful about the world, something most adults have forgotten how to see." In the tent, Lily stirred and let out a small sound, not quite a cry, but a gentle call. Maya went to her, lifting her daughter into her arms. "What did you see today, little one?" she whispered, rocking Lily gently. "What did you understand that the rest of us have forgotten?" Lily's eyes, still heavy with sleep, seemed to hold wisdom beyond her months as she gazed up at her mother. She reached one tiny hand toward the tent flap, toward the forest beyond where a bear now moved through the darkness, forever changed by its encounter with a human child who had somehow bridged the ancient divide between their worlds. As Maya held her daughter close, she wondered what other connections Lily might forge in the years to come, and what those connections might teach all of them about their place in the natural world. Whatever happened, she knew their family had been given a rare gift, a glimpse into the profound bond that still existed between humans and wildlife, if only they had the innocence and openness to perceive it. And somewhere in the vast wilderness surrounding them, A bear carried the memory of a baby's cry that had given it the will to live when all seemed lost. A reminder that even in the wild, no creature was truly alone. The first pale light of dawn filtered through the tent fabric when Maya awoke to an unusual silence. Normally, Lily would be babbling by now, her morning ritual of soft coos and giggles as reliable as the sunrise itself. Maya reached over to the portable crib beside her sleeping bag and found it empty. "Lily?" she called, sleep evaporating instantly as adrenaline flooded her system. "Daniel, wake up." "Lily's gone." Daniel bolted upright, disoriented for only a second before understanding transformed his face. They scrambled out of the tent, calling their daughter's name with increasing desperation. The campsite was empty. The morning dew still clung to the grass, undisturbed save for a single trail of small indentations leading from their tent toward the forest edge, the unmistakable prints of a crawling baby. How could she have gotten out? Daniel's voice cracked as he examined the tent flap. "I zipped it all the way up last night, I'm certain of it." Maya didn't answer. She was already following the tiny handprints in the dew-covered grass, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. The trail led directly toward the spot where the bear had left its offering the night before. "Rangers!" Daniel shouted, his voice echoing through the quiet campground. "Help! Our baby is missing!" Within minutes, the campsite erupted into frantic activity. Rangers emerged from their posts, radios crackling with urgent communications. Dr. Vasquez appeared, her face grim as she took in the situation. "We need to organize a search party immediately," she said, her professional calm belying the tension in her shoulders. "How long has she been missing?" "We don't know," Maya admitted, her voice small. "She was with us when we went to sleep around midnight. She could have been gone for hours." Dr. Vasquez nodded, already speaking into her radio. "Full alert, missing child, approximately 10 months old. Last seen at campsite 27. All available personnel to report for search and rescue operations." As rangers began to fan out through the surrounding area, Maya stood frozen at the edge of the forest, staring at the place where Lily's trail disappeared into the underbrush. A terrible thought was forming in her mind, one so impossible, so frightening, that she could barely bring herself to voice it. "The bear," she whispered. "What if—" Daniel grabbed her shoulders. "Don't even think it," he said fiercely. "There's no way. The tent was zipped up. She's just wandered off somehow and we're going to find her." But Maya couldn't shake the connection she'd witnessed the day before. The inexplicable bond between her daughter and the wild animal, the offering the bear had left, the way it had looked directly at their tent before disappearing into the night. What if that connection had somehow persisted, had somehow drawn Lily out into the wilderness? The search expanded rapidly. Park rangers with tracking dogs arrived, but the animals seemed confused by Lily's scent trail, whining and circling without picking up a clear direction. Volunteers from nearby campsites joined the effort, forming lines to methodically comb through the underbrush surrounding the area. Hours passed with no sign of Lily. Maya and Daniel moved like sleepwalkers, their voices growing hoarse from calling their daughter's name. The bright morning gave way to a hot, still afternoon, the beautiful landscape now seeming vast and threatening. Dr. Vasquez approached them as they paused to drink from water bottles provided by a sympathetic ranger. "I need to ask you something," she said quietly, leading them away from the others. "And I need you to understand I'm not dismissing any possibilities right now." Maya's heart clenched. "You're thinking it too, aren't you, about the bear?" The wildlife biologist's face remained carefully neutral. "After what I witnessed yesterday, I'm considering scenarios I would normally dismiss as impossible. But I need to know," Do you believe your daughter could have voluntarily sought out the bear?" Daniel started to protest, but Maya laid a hand on his arm. "I don't know," she admitted. "But there was something between them. Something I can't explain." Dr. Vasquez nodded slowly. "Then we need to shift our search strategy. If Lily wasn't taken against her will but went looking for the bear, she might be somewhere entirely different than where we've been searching. How would a 10-month-old baby even get out of a zipped tent?" Daniel asked, his voice breaking. "How would she know which way to go?" Neither woman had an answer for him. But as they rejoined the main search party, a commotion broke out near the communications tent that had been set up as a command center. A ranger was waving frantically, calling for Dr. Vasquez. "We've got something," he said as they rushed over. "Trail camera from the North Ridge, about 2 miles from here, triggered 3 hours ago." He turned a laptop toward them, and Maya felt her knees buckle. Daniel caught her, his own breath catching in his throat. On the screen was a grainy black-and-white image from a motion-activated camera. In it, the massive form of a bear was clearly visible, moving along a game trail in the early morning light. And there, nestled against its neck, tiny hands gripping its fur, was a small human form, Lily, her face peaceful, being carried gently through the wilderness by the very creature she had saved. "That's impossible," a ranger whispered. "Bears don't. They wouldn't." 2 miles north, Dr. Vasquez said sharply, cutting through the stunned silence. "We need to redirect the search immediately. And no weapons," she added, her voice firm. "Whatever is happening here, it's not a predation event." Maya couldn't take her eyes off the image. Her daughter, carried by a wild bear through the forest, looked not frightened but content, as if being transported by a trusted guardian. The rational part of her mind screamed that this was a nightmare, that bears were dangerous predators, that her baby was in mortal peril. But another part, the part that had witnessed yesterday's miracle, whispered that this was something else entirely. "We need to go," she said, already moving toward the trail that led north. "Now!" The search party reorganized quickly, with Dr. Vasquez taking the lead. The tension had shifted. No longer were they simply looking for a lost child, but pursuing what appeared to be an unprecedented event in human-wildlife interaction. Some rangers looked skeptical, others frightened, but all moved with renewed urgency. As they hiked deeper into the forest, following the main game trail that wound toward the North Ridge, Maya found herself remembering stories her grandmother had told her. Old tales from her Chinese heritage about children who could speak with animals, who moved between the human and natural worlds with special gifts of understanding. "There are some who are born with 1 foot in each world," her grandmother had said. "They see with different eyes, hear with different ears." The old ones called them bridge children, souls who remind us that the division between human and animal is not as absolute as we pretend. Maya had dismissed these as just stories, lovely but fanciful. Now, pushing through the underbrush with her heart pounding in her ears, she wondered if her daughter might be one of these bridge children, and what that would mean for their lives going forward. The trail grew steeper, winding up toward a rocky outcropping that offered a view of the valley below. Dr. Vasquez paused, consulting a topographical map. "The trail camera that captured the image is just ahead," she said, pointing to a bend in the path. "From there, we can try to determine which direction they were heading." As they rounded the bend, a low growl stopped the search party in their tracks. There, blocking the path ahead, stood a bear, but not, Maya realized with a surge of confusion, the same bear from yesterday. This one was smaller, with a distinctive white patch on its chest. It stood on its hind legs, sniffing the air cautiously, its eyes fixed on the humans. "Nobody move," Dr. Vasquez whispered. This is a different individual, younger, possibly a 2-year-old male. The bear dropped back to all fours, still watching them. Then, to everyone's astonishment, it turned and began to walk slowly up the trail, pausing after a few steps to look back at the search party. It wants us to follow, Maya said, the words emerging unbidden. That's not possible, a ranger protested. Bears don't lead humans anywhere. But when they remained still, the bear returned, moving closer before turning again and heading up the trail. The message seemed unmistakable. I'm following it, Maya declared, stepping forward despite Daniel's attempt to hold her back. That bear knows where Lily is, I'm certain of it. Dr. Vasquez hesitated only a moment before nodding. I'll go with you. The rest stay here and maintain radio contact. If we're not back in 30 minutes, send a team after us, but still no weapons. Daniel refused to be left behind, and the three of them began to follow the bear, maintaining a respectful distance as it led them off the main trail and along a smaller path that would have been easy to miss. They climbed steadily, the forest giving way to rockier terrain as they ascended toward the ridge. The bear led them to a small clearing surrounded by pine trees, then stopped at its edge, sitting back on its haunches as if indicating they should proceed without it. Maya stepped forward, then froze as she saw what waited in the clearing. There, in a natural hollow formed by the exposed roots of an ancient pine, lay the bear from yesterday, the one that had been trapped on the cliff. Its massive body curled protectively around a small form nestled against its fur. Lily, alive and apparently unharmed, was sleeping peacefully, one tiny hand tangled in the bear's thick coat. Lily, Maya whispered, her voice catching in her throat. The bear's head lifted, dark eyes regarding the humans warily, but there was no aggression in its posture, no warning growl or bared teeth. It seemed almost expectant, as if it had been waiting for them to arrive. Dr. Vasquez put a restraining hand on Maya's arm. Let me approach first, she said softly. Bears are most dangerous when they feel cornered or threatened. But Maya knew, with a certainty that transcended rational thought, that this bear would not harm her or her daughter. She moved forward slowly, her eyes locked with the bear's, feeling something pass between them, an understanding, an acknowledgement of the strange bond that now linked their lives. As she drew closer, Lily stirred, her eyes blinking open. She saw her mother and let out a happy gurgle, reaching out with both arms. The bear shifted, creating space between itself and the child, allowing Maya to kneel and gather her daughter into her arms. Lily, oh Lily, Maya sobbed, clutching her baby close, feeling her solid warmth, her living breath. Daniel was beside her in an instant, his arms encircling them both as tears streamed down his face. The bear watched, its massive head tilted slightly as if observing a curiosity. Then, with deliberate movements, it rose and backed away, creating distance between itself and the reunited family. The younger bear, which had led them to the clearing, moved to join it, and the two animals stood side by side watching. Dr. Vasquez remained at the edge of the clearing, her scientific mind visibly struggling to process what she was witnessing. This defies everything we understand about bear behavior, she murmured, almost to herself. Everything. Maya held Lily close, examining her for any sign of injury or distress. But the baby appeared perfectly content, not even hungry despite the hours that had passed since her last feeding. She babbled happily, occasionally turning to look at the bears with a smile of recognition. She's fine, Maya said, wonder in her voice. They've been protecting her. As if to confirm this assessment, the clearing around them revealed its secrets. The ground was littered with soft moss that had been piled into a makeshift bed where Lily had slept. Nearby lay the remains of the huckleberry branch from the night before, the berries now gone. Maya realized with a shock that the bear had not only brought her daughter here, but had provided the same berries as food. A ranger's voice crackled over Dr. Vasquez's radio, breaking the spell of the moment. Status update requested. Do you require assistance? Dr. Vasquez lifted the radio slowly, her eyes never leaving the scene before her. Child recovered, she reported, her professional tone at odds with the wonder on her face. Safe and unharmed. Stand by for further instructions. As they prepared to leave the clearing with Lily safely in their arms, Maya felt compelled to acknowledge what the bear had done. She turned to face the massive creature, meeting its intelligent gaze. "Thank you," she said simply, knowing the words were inadequate but unable to find others. The bear made a soft huffing sound, then turned and began to move away, the younger bear following. At the edge of the clearing, the larger bear paused, looking back one last time at Lily. Something passed between them, a silent communication that Maya could sense but not understand. Then both bears disappeared into the forest, leaving the humans alone with their reunited family and 1,000 unanswered questions. As they made their way back down the mountain, Lily nestled securely in Maya's arms. The baby occasionally pointed toward the forest and made soft sounds, as if trying to tell her parents about her adventure. Maya listened, responding as if she understood, honoring whatever mysterious connection her daughter had formed with the wilderness. Dr. Vasquez walked beside them, her notebook forgotten in her pocket. Some things, Maya realized, were beyond the capacity of science to immediately explain. Moments when the boundaries between human and animal dissolved, revealing connections more ancient than civilization itself. "What happens now?" Daniel asked quietly as they approached the search party waiting anxiously on the main trail. "How do we explain this? How do we go back to normal life after this?" Maya looked down at Lily, who was watching the forest with a serenity that seemed impossibly wise for her age. "I don't think we do go back," she said softly. "I think we go forward, but on a different path than the one we expected." Above them, a hawk circled against the blue sky, its cry echoing across the valley. Lily tilted her head, listening, then smiled as if hearing a message meant only for her. The news broke faster than anyone could have anticipated. Despite Dr. Vasquez's attempts to control the narrative and the Park Service's efforts to manage information, the story was simply too extraordinary to contain. One of the volunteer searchers had captured a distant photo of Maya and Daniel emerging from the forest with Lily in their arms, and behind them, partially obscured by trees but unmistakable, the silhouette of a bear watching their departure. By nightfall, the image had gone viral. "Miracle in Pine Valley. Baby returned by bear," screamed headlines across digital media platforms. Journalists descended on the small mountain community, satellite trucks clogging the narrow roads leading to the ranger station where the Chen family had been taken for privacy and observation. Maya sat in a small office, a cup of cooling tea before her, watching through the window as the crowd outside grew. Daniel paced nearby, his phone buzzing constantly with calls from family members who had seen the news. Lily slept peacefully in a makeshift crib, seemingly unaffected by the chaos her adventure had caused. "This is a nightmare," Daniel muttered, rejecting another call. "They're making it sound like some kind of fairy tale, like our daughter is some kind of bear whisperer." Maya couldn't bring herself to disagree with the characterization, not after what she had witnessed. Dr. Vasquez entered the room, looking exhausted. She had spent hours debriefing with senior park officials and trying to manage the scientific and media response to the events. "I've arranged for a helicopter to transport you to a private facility about an hour from here," she said without preamble. "The media situation is becoming unmanageable. For your family's safety and privacy, I think it's best if you're moved somewhere more secure." "And then what?" Maya asked, her voice hollow. "What happens after that? Do we just go back to our lives in the city as if none of this happened? As if our daughter doesn't have some kind of connection to these animals that science can't explain?" Dr. Vasquez sank into a chair, rubbing her temples. "I don't have answers for you," she admitted. "I've spent my career studying wildlife behavior, and nothing in my experience prepared me for what I saw today." Nothing. There was a knock at the door, and the park superintendent entered, his face grave. "We have another situation developing," he announced. "The bears have returned." "What?" All three adults spoke at once. "Both bears, the one from the cliff and the younger one that led you to your daughter. They're at the edge of the parking area. They seem to be waiting." As if on cue, Lily stirred in her crib, her eyes blinking open. She sat up, more alert than she normally would be after a nap, and pointed toward the window with a happy babble. Maya moved to the window and drew back the blinds. Through the gaps between the media vehicles and the gathering crowd, she could see them. Two dark shapes at the forest's edge, perfectly still, watching the building. "They followed us here," she whispered. "That's not possible," the superintendent said firmly. "Bears don't track humans across miles of wilderness just to, what? Visit a human child. It defies everything we know about wildlife behavior." Dr. Vasquez joined Maya at the window, her scientific skepticism visibly warring with what her eyes were telling her. "And yet," she said softly, "there they are." Daniel lifted Lily from the crib, holding her protectively. "I don't care why they're here," he said, his voice tight with renewed fear. "We need to get Lily away from here, now." But Lily had other ideas. She squirmed in her father's arms, pointing insistently toward the window and making sounds of distress when he tried to turn her away from it. "She wants to see them," Maya realized. "She knows they're here." The adults exchanged uneasy glances, their worldviews being challenged in ways none of them had been prepared for. Outside, the crowd had noticed the bears as well. A mixture of excited shouts and alarmed cries rose from the gathered onlookers, many of whom were now filming with their phones. "This is going to escalate quickly," the superintendent warned. "We need to tranquilize those bears and relocate them before someone gets hurt." "No!" Maya's objection was instant and fierce. "Those bears protected my daughter. They returned her safely to us. They've shown no aggression. They're just watching." Dr. Vasquez nodded slowly. "I have to agree. What we're witnessing is unprecedented behavior. Tranquilizing them now would not only be potentially dangerous, but we'd be shutting down an opportunity to observe something truly extraordinary." The superintendent looked torn, the weight of public safety concerns battling with scientific curiosity. "I can't have two wild bears hanging around a parking lot full of civilians and news crews," he said firmly. "The liability alone would end my career." A new voice joined the conversation, a tall woman in a crisp suit who had entered the room unannounced. "Perhaps I can offer a solution," she said, her British accent precise. "Dr. Eleanor Blackwood, Interspecies Communication Research Institute. Your Dr. Vasquez was kind enough to call me about your remarkable situation." Maya looked at the newcomer with surprise, then at Dr. Vasquez, who had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "I thought we needed an expert perspective," she explained. Dr. Blackwood's work on animal cognition and possible communication pathways between species is groundbreaking. Dr. Blackwood moved to the window, observing the bears with keen interest. "Fascinating," she murmured. "Absolutely fascinating. What you've described, a bear forming a protective bond with a human infant, and that infant somehow communicating or connecting with the bear, aligns with some of our theoretical models, but we've never documented a case this clear or dramatic." "That's all very interesting," the superintendent cut in. "But it doesn't solve my immediate problem of 2 wild bears in a public area." "Actually, it might," Dr. Blackwood replied. "My institute has a 500-acre research preserve about 2 hours from here. Secure, private, with facilities for both wildlife observation and human accommodation. We could temporarily relocate both the bears and the Chen family there, away from this media circus, and properly study this extraordinary connection in a controlled environment." Maya and Daniel exchanged looks. "Study?" Daniel asked, his protective instincts flaring. "You want to study our daughter?" Dr. Blackwood's expression softened. "I understand your concerns, Mr. Chen, but your daughter appears to have a gift, a capacity for connection with wild animals that could revolutionize our understanding of interspecies communication. At our facility, she would be completely safe, and you would have total control over all interactions. We're not talking about laboratory experiments, just careful observation in a setting where the bears could also remain safe from public interference." Maya looked down at Lily, who was still straining toward the window, her little face alight with an awareness that seemed far beyond her months. "What do you think would happen? At your facility, I mean." "That would be entirely up to you and what Lily seems comfortable with," Dr. Blackwood assured her. "Initially, we'd simply observe from a distance how the bears behave around her, how she responds to them. We have experts in early childhood development who could help assess any unique cognitive patterns Lily might be displaying. All completely non-invasive, I assure you." The superintendent cleared his throat. "While you're deciding, I need to address the situation outside. Those bears need to be moved, one way or another." He left the room, his stride purposeful. Maya moved to the window again, watching the bears. They remained at the forest's edge, ignoring the commotion their presence had caused, their focus seemingly fixed on the building where Lily was. "They know she's here," she said softly. "They came back for her." Daniel joined her, Lily still in his arms. The baby had calmed somewhat but continued to watch the bears with unmistakable recognition. "What happens if we just go home?" he asked. "Will they follow us there too? Will we spend the rest of our lives with wild bears showing up in our backyard?" It was a question none of them could answer. The world they had inhabited just days ago, a world where the boundaries between human and wild were clear and fixed, had dissolved around them, leaving them in uncharted territory. Dr. Blackwood watched them with sympathetic eyes. "Whatever you decide, I believe it would be valuable to understand what's happening here. Not just for science, but for Lily herself. If she does have a special capacity for connection with animals, she'll need guidance as she grows, and so will you, as her parents." Outside, park rangers were setting up barriers, keeping the crowd back from the edge of the forest where the bears waited. Time was running short for a decision. Maya took Lily from Daniel's arms, holding her daughter close as she considered the impossible choices before them. "I think we need to go with Dr. Blackwood," she said finally. "Not just for the bear's safety, but for Lily's. Whatever is happening here, running from it won't make it go away." Daniel looked torn, but eventually nodded. "On one condition," he said to Dr. Blackwood. "The first sign that this is causing Lily any distress, any at all, and we leave. Immediately, no questions, no arguments. Absolutely, Dr. Blackwood agreed. "I'll make arrangements for transport immediately." As the adults moved into action, organizing the logistics of their unprecedented relocation, Lily watched the bears through the window, a smile of recognition lighting her face. She placed one small hand against the glass, and Maya could have sworn the larger bear nodded slightly in response, as if acknowledging a promise made. Whatever path they were now on, Maya realized, had begun the moment her daughter's cry had echoed up that cliff face, touching something primal in a wild creature's heart. Where it would lead them, she couldn't begin to imagine. But she knew they had crossed a threshold from which there would be no simple return to the life they had known before. The Interspecies Communication Research Institute was nestled in a secluded valley, its modern buildings blending harmoniously with the surrounding wilderness. As the helicopter carrying the Chen family descended toward a landing pad near the main complex, Maya caught glimpses of expansive forests, meadows, and what appeared to be carefully designed habitats spread across the property. Dr. Blackwood sat across from them, speaking into a headset to coordinate their arrival. In a separate transport, the bears were being relocated under the supervision of Dr. Vasquez and a team of wildlife experts, using methods designed to minimize stress to the animals. "We'll get you settled in first," Dr. Blackwood explained as they touched down. "The bears won't arrive for another few hours, which gives us time to orient you to the facility and explain how everything works." Daniel nodded, his expression still guarded. He had reluctantly agreed to this plan, but Maya could sense his deep reservations. He held Lily securely in his lap, the baby surprisingly calm despite the noise and vibration of the helicopter. As they disembarked, they were met by a small welcoming committee, 3 individuals in casual but professional attire, who Dr. Blackwood introduced as key members of her team. "This is Dr. Jonah Rivera, our cognitive ethologist," she said, indicating a man with kind eyes and salt and pepper hair. "Dr. Amara Okafor, child development specialist, and Kai Nakamura, our facilities director who will be ensuring your comfort during your stay." Maya shook their hands mechanically, feeling overwhelmed by the surreal turn their lives had taken. Just 3 days ago, they had been a normal family on a camping trip. Now, they were at a secret research facility because their daughter appeared to have formed some kind of supernatural bond with wild bears. Lily, however, seemed entirely at ease, observing her new surroundings with bright curiosity. She babbled happily at Dr. Okafor, who responded with professional warmth. "She seems remarkably calm for a child who's experienced so much upheaval," the specialist observed. "No signs of distress or disorientation that I can detect." "She's been like that since the bears," Maya admitted, "almost as if she understands what's happening better than we do." They were escorted to a comfortable modern cabin set apart from the main research buildings. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of the forest on one side and a spacious meadow on the other. The interior was equipped with everything they might need, including a fully stocked kitchen and a nursery, furnished appropriately for Lily. "This will be your home base," Kai explained. "Complete privacy when you want it, but we're just a short walk away. The whole cabin is equipped with an advanced communication system. Just press this button if you need anything at all." After ensuring they were comfortable, the staff withdrew, leaving the family alone to process their new situation. Daniel immediately began exploring the cabin, checking locks on doors and windows with the protective instinct of a father whose child had already experienced one inexplicable disappearance. Maya placed Lily in the provided playpen and sank onto a sofa, suddenly exhausted. "What are we doing here, Daniel?" she asked softly. "Is this the right thing for Lily?" Daniel paused in his inspection, his face conflicted. "I don't know," he admitted. "But what choice did we have? Go back home and pretend none of this happened? What if the bears followed us there? What if this connection Lily has extends to other animals too? We need to understand it. Before Maya could respond, a gentle chime indicated someone at the door. Dr. Rivera stood outside, his manner respectful. "I apologize for the intrusion," he said when Maya opened the door. "But I wanted to let you know the bears have arrived safely and are being settled in an enclosure about half a mile from here. Dr. Blackwood thought you might want to observe the process from our monitoring center if you're feeling up to it." Maya and Daniel exchanged glances. "I think we should," Maya said quietly. "We need to see where they're keeping them, make sure they're being treated well." Daniel nodded reluctantly, and they gathered Lily, following Dr. Rivera along a winding path to a low building partially hidden by trees. Inside was a sophisticated monitoring center with multiple screens displaying various areas of the preserve. Dr. Blackwood greeted them, her attention divided between the new arrivals and the operations being coordinated on the screens. "Ah, perfect timing. The bears are just being released into the transitional habitat." On the largest screen, they could see a spacious forested enclosure surrounded by a nearly invisible barrier. A transport container was positioned at one edge, its door open to a short passageway leading into the habitat. For several tense moments, nothing happened. Then, cautiously, the younger bear emerged, sniffing the air suspiciously before moving into the trees. The larger bear, the one from the cliff, was more hesitant. It remained at the threshold of the transport container, as if assessing its new surroundings with greater wariness. Lily, who had been quiet in Maya's arms, suddenly pointed at the screen and let out an excited sound. The effect was immediate and astonishing. On screen, the bear's head lifted sharply, and it turned as if searching for the source of a sound it had heard. "That's impossible," Dr. Rivera murmured. "The habitat is soundproofed from this facility. There's no way the bear could have heard her." Yet the evidence was before their eyes. The bear moved forward with new purpose, emerging fully into the habitat and scanning its surroundings with focused attention. "It sensed her somehow," Maya said, a chill running through her. "Even through cameras and walls." Dr. Blackwood was watching Lily with intense interest. "The connection appears to be even stronger than we theorized," she said, her voice carefully neutral but unable to fully hide her excitement. "This opens up remarkable possibilities for our research." Daniel stiffened beside Maya. "Remember our agreement," he said firmly. "Lily's well-being comes first, before your research, before everything." "Of course," Dr. Blackwood assured him. "In fact, I suggest we take this very slowly. No direct contact between Lily and the bears for at least several days. We'll observe how they acclimate to the habitat and how Lily responds to their presence from a safe distance." This seemed to mollify Daniel somewhat, though Maya could still feel the tension radiating from him. On screen, both bears were now exploring their new environment, but the larger bear periodically paused, raising its head as if listening for something or someone. Over the next few days, a routine of sorts established itself. Each morning, Dr. Okafor would spend time with Lily, engaging her in play activities designed to assess her cognitive and communicative abilities. In the afternoons, they would observe the bears from the monitoring center, noting how the animals responded when Lily was present in the room versus when she was absent. A difference that became increasingly obvious to everyone involved. When Lily watched the bears on the screens, they became more active, often moving to the area of the habitat closest to the direction of the monitoring center, despite having no way of knowing where it was located. When she was napping or elsewhere in the facility, the bears behaved like normal wild animals, foraging, resting, or exploring their surroundings with no particular pattern. On the fourth day, Dr. Blackwood approached Maya and Daniel with a proposal. "We'd like to try a more direct observation," she explained. "There's an elevated viewing platform overlooking the habitat, completely secure and separated from the enclosure by multiple safety measures. We'd like to bring Lily there to observe how the bears respond to her physical presence rather than just her psychic presence, for lack of a better term." Daniel immediately began to object, but Maya placed a hand on his arm. "I think we should try," she said quietly. "We're here to understand this connection, aren't we? We can't do that if we keep Lily completely isolated from the bears." After much discussion and a thorough inspection of the viewing platform's safety features, Daniel reluctantly agreed. The next morning, the family was escorted to a wooden structure built into the trees at the edge of the habitat, high above the forest floor, but offering a clear view of a small clearing below. Lily, who had been somewhat subdued during their days at the facility, immediately perked up as they approached the platform. She wriggled in Maya's arms, eager to move forward, her eyes searching the trees below. "She knows they're here," Maya whispered to Daniel. "She can sense them." Dr. Blackwood and her team maintained a respectful distance, monitoring equipment set up to record every aspect of the encounter. "The bears are currently in the western section of the habitat," she informed them. "About 300 yards from this location. They haven't seen or heard our arrival." Yet, even as she spoke, movement in the underbrush below caught their attention. The bears were approaching, not cautiously or randomly, but with clear purpose, heading directly toward the viewing platform. "That's not possible, Doctor," Rivera muttered, checking his tracking equipment. "How could they know we're here? The platform is downwind. We made no noise, and it's visually camouflaged from below." Lily let out a series of happy sounds, bouncing in Maya's arms and pointing as the bears emerged into the clearing below. The animals paused, looking up directly at the platform. The younger bear hung back slightly, but the larger one moved forward until it was directly beneath them, its massive head tilted upward. "Remarkable," Dr. Blackwood breathed. "It's as if they're responding directly to her presence." Lily stretched her arms downward, making insistent sounds. Maya held her securely, but couldn't help feeling that her daughter was trying to communicate something specific to the bear below. Without warning, the bear rose onto its hind legs, its massive form reaching nearly 8 feet in height. Gasps echoed across the platform as researchers instinctively stepped back, but the bear showed no signs of aggression. Instead, it placed one paw against its chest in a gesture that seemed almost deliberate. "Is it trying to communicate?" Dr. Blackwood whispered, her scientific detachment momentarily forgotten in the face of such unprecedented behavior. Lily responded with a series of sounds, not random babbling, Maya realized with a shock, but patterned vocalizations with distinct rhythms and tones. The bear lowered itself back to all fours, then performed a series of movements that appeared ritualistic, circling once, pawing at the earth, then sitting back on its haunches with its head tilted at a specific angle. "She's talking to it," Maya breathed, the words barely audible. "And it's answering." Dr. Rivera was frantically taking notes, his hands trembling slightly. "This defies every established principle of animal cognition and communication," he murmured. "We're witnessing something that shouldn't be possible." The exchange continued for several minutes, Lily making her patterned sounds, the bear responding with specific movements or postures. The younger bear remained at the edge of the clearing, watching but not participating in the strange dialogue. When Lily finally stopped, settling contentedly against Maya's shoulder, the bear below gave what could only be described as a nod, before turning and moving back into the forest, the younger bear following close behind. Silence enveloped the platform, the adults struggling to process what they had witnessed. It was Daniel who finally spoke, his voice unsteady. "I want to know exactly what just happened. Did our daughter just have a conversation with a wild bear?" Dr. Blackwood's face reflected equal parts scientific excitement and personal awe. "I believe she did, Mr. Chen. And this changes everything."